episode of the Ignite Healthcare Marketing Podcast. And I am so excited for this episode. I say that every week, but I truly mean it. These conversations with healthcare marketing leaders are so rewarding. It gives us insight into what all of you are dealing with, the challenges, the struggles, the wins. So we're really excited about today's episode. Joining me today is Jennifer Muñoz-Callahan, the VP of Digital Performance at Promises Behavioral Health. Jennifer, welcome to Ignite.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. So we're recording this. It's the middle of May. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. This is a topic that's really passionate for me. I know it's a passion of yours, so I'm really excited to dig into this. But before we get into the conversation, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and the work that you do at Promises?
Yes. So my original foundation professionally is in hospitality. So I spent a lot of time in food and beverage. And then when COVID happened, I decided to go back to school, and I was looking up programs of, hey, if this pandemic stays like this and we don't get to be around anybody, what kind of careers are going to be, in high demand? And digital marketing was one of them. So I went back to school and I got a professional certification from Texas Tech in applied science of digital marketing. And during our finals, I had to pick 2 jobs that were local and kind of do like a pitch for them, a competitor analysis, all that jazz. I sent it to my professor and she said, if these jobs are still open, you need to send these. One of them was for an autism organization, and they were local here in San Antonio. I reached out to the VP of marketing, sent my resume and the competitor analysis, and then I got hired shortly after. I absolutely fell in love with behavioral science. I learned so much at that job, not only about just the role of behavioral science in general, but how we apply it every single day to pretty much every single thing that we do. And I was approached by Promises, and, they kind of let me know what they were looking for, and they needed help with restructuring their digital marketing program. This was a different side of behavioral health. Before, I was working with more pediatric. This is more adult focused, and it is with substance abuse and mental health, which I have a direct correlation and tie to. And I want to state this. I was absolutely apprehensive about taking this job because I thought, I have so many close triggers and ties myself. If we want to talk about mental health, I was very, very concerned if that would bring triggers, if it would make me sad, what it was going to do to me personally. But I definitely worked through all of those kinks within the first 2 months. And I said, I know that this is where I'm meant to be.
I love that. I think that is probably giving you a perspective to really understand the people you're trying to reach. And we're going to talk all about that. So I think that's great. And I think your background in hospitality is really interesting too. I think in healthcare, sometimes like a coldness, like things feel kind of sterile, and it's not necessarily how do you connect with the people you're trying to reach. And I think a lot of places could learn a lot from retail and hospitality, and how do you actually approach people as people. And the behavioral health space, is one of the most sensitive spaces, I think, in healthcare. Historically, there's a lot of like stigma, misunderstandings. People don't quite know what options are available. They might not want to talk about it openly. So I think that's a big challenge for how do you actually reach the people that need you the most. So when you're thinking about that and thinking about your marketing strategy, what are the biggest misunderstandings or things that you kind of want to overcome and kind of make clear to the people you're trying to reach?
Well, it depends. Which person am I trying to reach, right? We have so many personas. And what we do in this space, I categorize them into 3. Right? So you have the parent. The parent's journey is completely different. They're never going to give up on their child, their adult child. They've been through it. So reaching them is probably the easiest. I want to say the patient is the toughest sell. They have so much that they have to overcome, and just making that first step. What I like to tell people is it's like this inertia that is pushing against you. And that inertia is rooted in shame, pain. What is it going to be like? I'm going somewhere that's unfamiliar. And even though their coping skills are painful for them, it is still their comfort. And that's scary to just pull away from. So I think it's really important that when we are marketing, we are definitely looking at our different personas and saying, how are we reaching their psychographics? What is it that scares them the most? And then when we write content, when we speak with them, we are really driving home, hey, we all know the first things that you're thinking. What is it going to be like? Where am I going? What does it look like? What are the people like? Can I bring my cell phone? Am I going to be able to keep my job? There are so many different questions that they have. Or how am I going to pay for this? I don't have insurance. There are so many different things that go into that. I really do think that we try to lead with, this is what is going to happen your first couple of days.
So thinking about trust, people, they get the recommendation, they have someone suggest a solution to them, and they're looking for those credibility signals. And what are you kind of doing to establish that across? You mentioned different messages for different channels. Are you doing patient storytelling? Are they video testimonials? Are you reaching out to your existing patient base? Like, how does that kind of materialize and get those credibility signals out to your audience?
So testimonials, we don't do much of. What
Mhm.
I am trying to do now with our social media and brand storytelling moving forward is definitely trying to produce content that everybody can see themselves in, right?
Mhm.
It's not let's walk through a field with weeds and flowers and touch them. It's not let's show somebody who's on a hike. It's more so of like showing somebody who is like staring at a phone. And if anybody has been through anything similar, they know that that first step is the hardest. The inertia is almost like trying to push the Titanic away from the glacier. And I think that you can build a lot of credibility and trust if you use your channels and try to alleviate those
Mhm.
initial fears that are going to just say, oh, nope, I'm not going to go. Because with all of your different personas, your patient is the most difficult to sell, right? They are
Mhm.
going to feel the most pain, that they are the ones who have to step into total discomfort. And if
Mhm.
you talk about mental health and behavior, I don't want to say that it's wholeheartedly, but a lot of substance abuse issues are rooted in mental health, right? So
Mhm.
even though they are seeking discomfort that brings them pain or seeking comfort in what brings them pain, it is still their comfort, and
Mhm.
rewiring their brain to seek comfort elsewhere. I mean, that's a hard sell. I try to tell our content manager, look, the one thing is that you have to be relatable.
Mhm.
Every decision that you make is hard, right? You have to choose your hard. And we have to convey that. And I think that we have to take away the stigma and shame in all the
Mhm.
social media that we put out, that everybody is struggling, right?
Mhm.
Yes, you may have relapsed. I relapsed like 400 times on my diet since the beginning of January, right? And I have a gluten intolerance. So I should be like very strict on that. Everybody steps back. Nobody's growth in this life is linear. I mean, it looks just like a hot mess of ping, 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 detour, detour. And I think when you open up the story to say you have mirror situations that we do, our struggles are just different.
Mhm.
It allows you to take away the shame.
I like that. I mean, understanding those personas and understanding, like, especially the dual diagnosis, like, it's not just one thing. People are complex, and showing up to them authentically. I think in healthcare, there's just been this history of stock photography that does feel like really artificial, like you said, and people are frolicking through grass fields, but that's not the moment that they're in. So finding that how to be relatable, that builds that trust a little bit, that they understand what I'm going through. You get my pain and my challenges. Because if you don't, like, how can I trust you? You're just like speaking to me meaningless. You have to really be that connectiveness and understanding of their situation. So I like that. That's really helpful. And you mentioned one other thing I wanted to dig into about that moment when they finally, they've been going through these challenges and they finally do make that moment when they want to reach out. They make the call, they submit a form online, and at that point the clock is ticking. So how do you kind of think about speed to appointment or speed to like actually respond to them, to that, so that once they make that decision to get help, that they're actually on the track to doing that? What friction points do you see? How can you kind of alleviate it to get them the care that they need?
I'm really big into behavioral science. So I like to tie
Mhm.
everything into consumer behavior and
Mhm.
how we go about making decisions and what friction points do for us. So they make that initial call and they are on board, probably
Mhm.
skeptical, probably one step away from just saying, no, I'm not doing this. So speed to call is just so imperative. At Promises, one thing I can say about our admissions and call center, like they are absolutely on top of their game. They have skin in the game, most of them, so they understand that we only have a very short time frame to get in contact with them,
Mhm.
to verify any kind of benefits, and during this whole time, those first initial phone calls, you're just being hit with friction, right? Of why they
Mhm.
can't come, they need a ride, they don't know if their insurance is valid, they don't know if they're ready. And I think what is very important, which we do have at Promises, is having a very skilled team who knows how to walk them through that journey and able to make that conversion. And when you have people who have skin in the game, that's a completely different sell. They understand the resistance. I have listened into calls where I feel the nurturing in the communication, not only to the patient, but to the family. And
Mhm.
whenever I look at follow ups, we are trying to follow up as much as we can because we know that they can change their decision really quickly. And that's not so much of like, oh man, we just missed an admit. It is more so that somebody lost taking those first steps because we
Mhm.
didn't get to it quick enough.
Mhm.
And I know that our call center, they pride themselves on making sure that we do everything we can in our power to get same day admits, right? So that they don't have an opportunity to step back and say, no, we're
Yeah.
not going to do this. And I think it's really important. This isn't like your normal sell. If you are somebody who is marketing in behavioral science and substance abuse and mental health issues, and you have no relatable experience to it, and you are not putting the personas and the psychographics behind it, you're really missing out because these people, when they're making these phone calls, whether it's the parent or the patient, like they are in duress, absolute
Mhm.
duress. And
Mhm.
they want to have that solidified, making that next step as soon as they can. This can be 3 a.m.
Mhm.
This can be 6 a.m. This can be on a Sunday. This can be on a holiday. And
Mhm.
I am really just appreciative that I have a call center that, we are working 365 days a year. We want people to know that we are committed to getting you out and getting you the promises out because we pride ourselves on our program being rooted in behavioral science. So you are not coming to some organization where we're going to sit in a circle and trauma dump and trigger you and sing kumbaya. We are diving in, trying to get to the root of what the issue is, the root of what the behavior is, so that we know, okay, this is what we need to treat. These are the tools that this individual needs. And that is
Mhm.
all rooted in behavior science. What can we do to rewire these brains so that they seek comfort in healthier choices and not in the old habits that brought tons of harm to them?
That close relationship that you have with a really strong contact call center is sounds like that's paramount. That really marketing operations have to have a strong alignment, and it really sounds like they're empathetic. They understand. They mean they are that first point of contact. So, just advice for the listeners, like that is like they are on that front line and having that right communication. Is that something that you guys work together on messaging or like insights that you get from them to kind of bring back to marketing? Is that like a collaboration point that you guys work through?
Well, I do know that we definitely audit, closed case attribution and what was the issue. And
Yeah.
we try to keep a pulse on, okay, is this something that just happened like 2 or 3 times, or is this something that's becoming a trend? And then we
Mhm.
definitely look into it. And if it's something that we need to do with the call center, then they have an incredible leader, which is our VP, Sadie Sanzota. But she is on her team. They are constantly training. They are constantly recalibrating in what the nurturing part of the journey is to get
Mhm.
them to come and be a patient and get help from Promises. So I think it's highly imperative. And we work together as much as we possibly can because at the end of the day, we are all on the same team, and that is to get people help.
Yeah. Everyone's on the same team. It's about patient access, connecting them to care. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there like thinking about your hospitality background, is there any kind of like learnings or things experience there that you have brought to the behavioral health space that you'd want to share?
I definitely can say that coming from the hospitality industry definitely makes you a more human based person
Mhm.
because you are human facing. There, we would say client facing, but
Mhm.
it definitely transfers over to patient facing.
Mhm.
And it really is having a way with people, being able to talk to them, being able to
Mhm.
connect, that definitely helps them, one, remember you, to
Hmm.
send people back your way. Be an alumni in this case, right?
Hmm.
Hospitality would say, be a recurring customer, somebody who came into your facility all the time. That moves mountains. And I definitely
Hmm.
have tried to bring that into this space. Our alumni, if you think about it, they are the best source to tell other people, hey, the experience that I had at Promises was very fruitful and beneficial.
Yeah, word of mouth cannot be underappreciated, especially, as trust is kind of weakening in some institutions. People are looking for, testimonials directly or asking their friends, their neighbors, like, their family on what worked for them. Like you have to have a really strong experience, patient experience that they want to tell everybody about. The moms want to tell their other moms about. So I think that's, really important to kind of bring that to the piece.
Well, let me bring something up to you
Yeah.
right there because this is probably going to be like, yes, okay, testimonials are great. I
Hmm.
literally cringe whenever I hear that because we're in healthcare marketing and it is so difficult to stay in compliance with HIPAA
Hmm.
and all of the other healthcare regulations whenever it comes to getting testimonials or, maybe doing a podcast where we feature patients. That's not something that we're allowed to do. So we are definitely hindered in our ability to work like the rest of the marketing world where you can have people on your podcast and say, hey, give a testimonial, tell people all about us. I do think that reviews are extremely important at the facilities just because everybody checks reviews, right? If
Hmm.
I am an addict and my mom is trying to get me to go to a facility, I'm going to find every excuse to tell her why
Hmm.
I'm not going to go. And, you become very manipulative, right? And creative. You're like, oh, well, mom, I went to the Better Business Bureaus, mom, and do you see this?
Always things.
Yeah, there's a list of things. They don't treat their people well. How are they going to treat me well? And I definitely feel like I could see people trying to get out of coming to care or talking themselves out of it because of, bad Google reviews.
Yeah, the consumers and people, I say consumers, but I mean, there's people. We're all people here. But like you said, everybody is reviewing and they're at like 2 a.m. on their phone reading Reddit forums, trying to find out every bit of information that they can find about, Facebook groups, Reddit, AI now. Like will dig and dig and dig to find what they need. If it's a parent, to find good information. And like you said, maybe it's the opposite, like your reason not to seek care. And I think one of the other pieces of that you kind of touched on earlier is that insurance piece. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, maybe unknowns about how much do things even cost. Like, is it covered by my insurance? Can I even afford this? That could be that barrier. What are you guys doing in that regard to try to alleviate that friction point to get people to not use that as an excuse not to seek care?
That is actually one of the first steps for the call center is they want to get the VOB. Because it's just absolutely important to take the next steps. And what I love about our call center, and I can't brag about them enough, and also our business development team is if we can't work with your insurance,
Mhm.
we are going to find you somebody who can, right?
Mhm.
We have really incredible relationships with other facilities who maybe they take an insurance that we don't, or they have grant programs that we don't. We are going to match you with that. So it does not just stop at Promises because
Mhm.
we don't take your insurance. And I think that that's an absolute beautiful thing. I've never seen any business organization like be so tied to one another
Mhm.
of just saying, no, this person needs treatment. You can call somebody up at another facility who's your competitor and say, we don't have any beds open for XYZ. And
Mhm.
they're going to find help. Insurance piece is, well, we work in healthcare. So insurance is always very fascinating. It is by state, by, what county, what area of that state you're in. If you have Medicare, Medicaid, we definitely try to seal that deal in the very, very beginning. And I do know that, especially in this economic time, we have become a lot more laxed on our upfront cost
Mhm.
to, start seeking services. And I think that that alleviates a lot of the friction too. That is something
Mhm.
that we had to look at and say, hey, times are different. There's a lot going on in the healthcare world with different programs being cut, and we keep our pulse on that.
Mhm.
So we are going to make ourselves as available as we can to make sure we get people the help that they need.
I like that. And there's a lot of changes happening in the world, from a political, economic, and all the ways. Like people, it's hard. And you mentioned, looking at call transcripts and like kind of trying to keep that pulse on trends. Is there anything that you've seen in the last couple of years, or things that have stood out to you as an emerging trend that you're watching in 2026?
I wouldn't say that one of the things I see is an emerging trend that is positive, but one that I feel is very negative, and I see it in healthcare a lot, is we're too clinical in
Mhm.
everything that we are putting out. For instance, dual diagnosis.
Mhm.
I can walk around in downtown San Antonio, that's where I'm at, with the mic and say, do you know what dual diagnosis is? Do you know what dual diagnosis is? And I think sometimes we are so deep into what we're doing
Mhm.
that, we become very acclimated to these clinical terms that nobody else knows, right?
Mhm.
And I would like to see a trend for everybody who's watching is to start talking to the actual patient and realize
Mhm.
that dual diagnosis, most people don't know about it. If you live in a rural area, mental health is not something that is really talked about, right?
Mhm.
I'm in Texas, and not a lot of people are familiar whatsoever with mental health, and that you can seek help and go to a facility for it.
Mhm.
And, we're talking about PTSD, we are talking about depression, we are talking about eating disorders. And I think that the trend, and this is to all my behavioral marketers out there, the trend needs to be in 2026 is to start dissecting that for our patient demographic and telling them what all of those things are
Mhm.
and the treatments and services we provide. I think just going on a website alone and you're like, oh, well, it covers this particular program and it's stuff that's absolutely foreign to you. We're right there. You're like, oh, this sounds a little more intense than what I need, right? Instead of just
Mhm.
saying this is for
Scary.
each
It
source.
could be
Yeah.
scary. Like, that's
Yeah.
not for me. That's not what I'm dealing with. So it sounds like, being authentic, really understanding these people and speaking everyday language, helping them to understand. It is scary, but helping it feel approachable and something that they can actually motivate them to seek help. So I think that's great advice. Behavioral health marketers, I think healthcare as a whole can try to strip away some of that clinical language. Like it is just kind of no more doctors in white coats, no more kumbaya circles. Let's like be real people and actually kind of connect with people as they want to be connected with. I think that's great advice. And it's not a one time thing. Often, like you mentioned before, it is a continuing conversation. So, how do you think about marketing's role in the recovery journey and keeping them on that track to better health?
I think retention marketing is probably the most critical and crucial thing that we can offer in order to help facilitate somebody staying on the recovery journey. I dial it back all over again and being authentic in the messages and the content that we're putting out. But I also think it's very important to reiterate on our online social media accounts things that they have learned when they were in the facility. I know they talk a lot about using their toolbox, and shout out to Jamise and Rhonda, who are very wonderful women on our clinical team. And I've had conversations with them. Those are the things that they take when they step out. And when they hit that first trigger, they are like, okay, what do I have in my toolbox to help me get away
Mhm.
from this? So I think it's very important that when you are scheduling your content for the month, and please, behavioral health people, all think about this. When you are scheduling your content, remember that that is just as important as them walking through a field or on a beach saying relief is near. The reality of it is, and this is because I know I have parents that are addicts. So I've spent 20 plus years being the person who's calling, being the
Mhm.
person who is seeing the struggle. And the biggest part and the most actually intimidating part is when they step out because they owe people money. They have warrants. They don't have a place to live.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't know about you, but that would send me back to having a cocktail or margarita at Chili's. And we try to set them up to where they have all of the resources when they step out from the clinical team. And I think it's
Mhm.
just as important for marketing and for blog posts that you are giving them the same insight, right? So they
Mhm.
have that place to go. We also have a really good family program. We have an incredible alumni program. And I always tell people, if your area has a Facebook group, to join that, because those are absolutely incredible and insightful. People get on there every single day and they share their stories, their ups and downs. And, I think the best way to help in the recovery journey is to not allow things to become a secret again. We do that by keeping community.
I love that. Thank you for sharing so much about how do you build an authentic and accessible brand that is there to help people. I think, like you said, marketing's role doesn't stop at the beginning of the journey. It's building that brand and resource across all those touch points throughout someone's journey. And I think that's so important. And you shared some really wonderful advice, Jen. Thank you again for joining Ignite. This has been a great conversation. And I hope that our listeners, if they have any questions, they want to reach out to you, where can they find you and connect with you?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Great. We'll drop your link in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out, say hey. And thank you all again. And join us next week for another episode of Ignite. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.